Today on the 1012 podcast, myself and Chase A Kiddy are joined by Gary Segars of the BetUS College Football Show to make picks for every Big 12 game on the Week 5 slate. That includes the classic Big 12 matchup between Utah and Arizona, Oklahoma State at Kansas State, TCU and Kansas trying to lick their wounds, and every other game coming up on the 1012.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, No. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
George Clooney and Brad Pitt's new movie, Wolves, is on Apple TV Plus September 27th.
That's where I want you to be now.
So if you want to see George Clooney and Brad Pitt, go to Apple TV Plus.
You got to start the story there.
Or if you want to see Brad Pitt and George Clooney, go to Apple TV Plus.
I am enjoying the show.
And if you want to see their new movie, Wolves.
You can't do it, I'm going to help you out. I can do it. So do it.
Definitely go to Apple TV Plus.
Admit it, it's cool. Okay, fine, it was very cool.
Wolves, streaming September 27th on Apple TV Plus. Rated R.
Welcome to the 1012, the podcast that covers all 16 teams in the Big 12 Conference. We are the flagship show of the 1012 Network. Find every show on the network at 1012network.com, TEN, the number 12, the word network. And of course, we are partners with Sports Social, Europe's biggest sports podcast network. I'm your host, Phillip Slavin. Thank you for joining us for our Week 5 Picks show. I am very excited about today. I'm very excited. I mean, look, I'm excited every week to talk football and to talk college football because we get so few weeks of this and we're on Week 5. And I think we've got some sneaky good games this weekend. We do. We got some fun games to talk about here. Like, I'm getting a look from Chase like, okay, yeah, sure. All right. Mm-hmm. Like, look.
I agree. I'm
okay.
with you.
Okay. I wasn't sure what that looked. Look, we've been doing, this is only Week 5 for us. Okay. And I know we've been on the show a few times, but I'm still not entirely, on the perfect same wavelength. I don't know all the looks and different things about Chase to be able to read you perfectly. We'll get there. This, relationships take time to build.
Your boys have a good one this weekend. I'm with you. I'm excited. I'm interested.
No, they don't. No, we'll get to that. All right. That voice you hear is my weekly co-host. He is Chase A Kiddy from BetMGM, who puts out a very good collection of picks each week. We will have that dropped in the show notes so you can check them out. There's a couple of Big 12 games you've got, which I'm sure we'll mention, but there's a couple of Big 12 games you've got on this week's article, so everybody wants to make sure and go check that out. Joining us today, I'm very excited to have him as a guest. I've watched the BetUS College Football Show for quite some time, ever since they've convinced Parker to come and do that. You all know who Parker Fleming is, Stats of War on Twitter. If you don't know who Parker Fleming is, because every podcast is someone's first, you should go find out about the very, very hairy man at this point. I mean, good Lord. The mane, I think it's a mane is an appropriate description for it to go with the beard. But Gary Segars, Parker's not here this week. He'll join us later in the season. But Gary Segars, who hosts the show, is joining us today. Gary, welcome to the 1012, man.
Most certainly. I appreciate you guys for having me. I've been listening to you fellas for, so far this season. And yeah, I'm a fan of your work. I like what you're doing.
Thank you. It's nice. That's very nice. I appreciate that. It's nice to know that people listen. I know that the metrics tell me that they do, but it's also good to hear someone be like, no, I listen to the show. Like, okay, so it's not just like auto downloads that don't count. You just never know.
No. And so here's the thing. I enjoy people that, this is what I used to do. I was an SEC bettor, right? I mean, I am in Memphis. I am in the heart of the SEC. I still call it the heart of the SEC. But yeah, when you're niched down and you know exactly what you're talking about, you have more information about the Big 12 than some big national podcast is going to have, right? So I have an SEC podcast that I listen to. I have a Big 12. I have an ACC one, et cetera, and it goes through all the G5 ones. And it is now I listen to everything on 2 times speed, so I'm just rolling through. But you get more information that way. I feel like.
Man, I wish I could do the 2 time. Even this like the 1.5, I can't do. My wife listens to books on tape at like 2 times speed. And I'm just like, oh, cool. Chipmunk narrating this one again. I don't know where you keep finding all these Chipmunk narrated books, but I know it's a dumb joke. I don't care. I am a dad, father of 3, as you all know. I'm allowed to make dad jokes. Speaking of dads, as you all know, or again, every podcast is someone's first, Chase is going to have twins in December. His wife and he having their first kids, 2 at once. That's something. And so we try each week here on the show. When our guest has children, the last 2 weeks, they have not, but Gary does. So Gary,
Yes.
I have to ask you this very important question for Chase is, what's one piece of parenting advice you would like to offer Chase as he prepares for his first children to enter the world?
If you don't already, learn how to nap at just random sporadic times, because otherwise you will never get sleep. It will never have for the first year and a half even. And I've had 2 what we call angel babies that started sleeping through the night very early. But the one that I've got right now that just turned a year old, no, she does not like to sleep. She does not like to nap. But whenever the baby goes down, you are going to have to adjust your schedule, and you got to start taking naps too, just to be able to keep up, because I could not do it for the longest time. And now it's not so difficult for me to get a 30-minute power nap in, right? Just something along those lines to where you can get a little bit of energy back, because you're going to need it. I think that's the biggest thing that I learned is learn to nap. Make sure that you actually get a little bit of sleep whenever you can, so that when it's 2:30 in the morning, it's not going to absolutely kill you for the rest of the day.
Yeah, unfortunately, an uneven distribution of talent in my marriage on this particular topic, because I mean, from a long decade in my 20s of sleeping on every odd couch and beanbag chair between DC, Harrisonburg, and Richmond, I can nap anywhere at any time. And my wife, who is a nurse anesthetist, God love her, like she cannot sleep. She just is wired to always be awake and take care of people. And I am afraid that the first couple years of this is going to be, I am bright-eyed, well-rested, bushy-tailed every single day, and my poor wife is just going to be just like
a wreck.
Yeah, the whole time. I'm very worried about it. But that is probably very good advice. Thank you. Gary.
Most certainly. Yeah, no, so mine, I've got a 19-year-old, I've got a 6-year-old, and now I have a 1-year-old. So I restarted the clock again, one that's in college in Boston, and they are all completely different. So I am very curious. I don't know anybody personally that has twins. I have cousins that are twins, but by God, they were older than me, so I never really got I didn't get to hear it after I became a parent, but I'm going to keep up with you just so that I can see, how it changes. Are the kids the same? Do they act differently? I'm very curious. So I'm going to be following the podcast mainly just to keep up with that part.
Yeah, we 1 boy, 1 girl. So it'll definitely be the full social experiment. We'll see how it goes.
Oh yes. I can't wait.
Oh, I'm excited, man. I'm excited for it. Should be fun. It's going to be fun. You're going to like it. Just, speaking of not getting sleep, especially if you can and she can't, pick up as much of the slack, man. Just be there. Be present. All right.
Yes.
Yeah. I have no worry about that for Chase, but it's something to be said for all listening and at home. Okay. Let's recap what happened last week here on the podcast. I won the week at 5-4. Should have been 6-3. We'll talk about that in a second. Chase, you finished 4-5, and our guest Brett went 2-7. Worst week of the year for our guests so far. Gary, just so you're aware, none of our guests have had a winning week. Our first 2 guests both went 500. So you one game over 500, you might finish the year as the grand champion at this point of our guests. So
hey, I just appreciate Brett for setting the bar so low for me.
Oh, good. 0-9 incoming now.
There you go.
1-8, huzzah! All right. So like Chase, you went 4-5. You hit on West Virginia -2.5. Hit on the over 58.5 in TCU SMU. Hit on BYU +6.5 and Tulane -3. The misses were Houston +3.5, under 51.5, and Iowa State, Arkansas State.
Ugh.
ASU plus 3.5, OSU minus 1.5, and the under 51.5 in Colorado Baylor. 4-5 for the week, 19-25 on the season, sir.
Yeah, it is what it is.
Very succinct, to the point. Very good. I went 5-4. Hit on Cincinnati minus 3.5. Hit on the over 51.5 in Iowa State, Arkansas State. I hit on the under 54.5 in OSU, Utah. Hit on Colorado minus 1.5. And hit on BYU plus 6.5 versus Kansas State. The misses were Kansas plus 2.5. I had that one. Arizona State plus 3.5. Nope. TCU minus 2.5. Nope. And Cal plus 2.5 versus Florida State. Because Chase told me not to do JMU plus 10.5 versus North Carolina.
Sure
I
did.
said, well, Chase is a smart guy. He knows more about me. If Chase says I definitely shouldn't do this, and especially when it comes to JMU, because Chase, if I'm going to need to know about James Madison University football, you're my go-to guy. And for you to be like, there's no way. Okay, so I changed my pick. And lo and behold, JMU wiped the floors with North Carolina.
I don't know how else to describe that game other than, especially speaking as an alumnus, that was pornographic. I mean, it was, I've never seen a game with blocked punt, onside kick, just like multiple jump offside 80. Alonzo Barrett was throwing 80-yard touchdown passes on offside calls like he was Aaron Rodgers. And this, he had like a QBR of 5 the week before. 5, not a typo, 5, QBR 5. So it just, bizarre game. Hey, I hope they do it again against Ball State this weekend. But I mean, there was absolutely no reason to think that was going to get uncorked 5 days ago.
Well, this is the beauty of college football, is the games are played on the field, not on paper, and sometimes we're right and sometimes we're wrong, and that's okay, because it's still much fun to watch things like North Carolina get up 70 points to James Madison.
I'll tell you too, I said this on Twitter, but for those that missed it, what a day to watch a JMU game from your mother-in-law's house who attended the University of North Carolina. What a day. Man.
Oh. Yeah,
I believe at one point she left her own house.
Woof. I think we've all been there at least once, so it's understandable. All right. So I went 5-4. I am 19-25. So we are back to tied, Chase, 19-25 on the season. We both got some work to do to get back to and above 500. So we have, what is this, 9 games to pick today? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games. 8 games. 7 Big 12 games, 1 non-Big 12. We always pick a non-Big 12 at the end of the show, whatever one we want. You guys ready to get going?
Yeah, let's do it. And by the way, I've got to say, y'all have got the most difficult conference to be able to stay above 500 when it comes to the spread or picking over-unders. This conference is bananas. Like, it makes no sense from week to week. We've got just a few good teams, and then those good teams go to Provo, and you saw what happened. So, yeah, I'm ready to roll. But by God, if y'all get to 500, you should be winning awards.
It's a really fun 500 too, because I won't speak for Phil, but I'll speak for me. On the picks where I'm like, I feel pretty good about this, I'm at like 80-85%. And on the picks where I'm like, total toss-up, not really sure what to do here, definitely not betting this in real life, I think I'm at like 10%. Like, I can't pick a winner on the toss-ups to save my life.
The coin flips are not going your way.
The preseason, we were so wrong on so many teams, which is what always happens. Like, yeah. I don't think there's a conference where the preseason expectations are more wrong than the Big 12.
Absolutely.
Of the P4 team conferences, just because like it is a conference entirely built on development cycles. And so every year we get into the off season and have to tell ourselves, okay, don't just pick last year's good teams. Don't just pick last year's, and then we do it again, Kansas State, who's still good, but like, and then how did we not see this coming? Well, because so look, it's a ton of fun. And then you throw in the fact that there's 4 brand new schools who we're all familiar with, and 4 schools who are in their second year, and one of them has a new. So it's just like, it is just madness and chaos all rolled into one beautiful bouquet. of college football. And I love this damn conference. Otherwise, I wouldn't do 2 podcasts a week, much to my wife's sometimes chagrin. So let's go ahead and start. We do this the same way every week. We go in chronological order. Everyone gets to pick for every Big 12 game on the schedule. You can take the spread. You can take the over-under, whichever one you would like. We are going to start down in Waco. BYU off their massive upset win. Baylor off blowing a game against Colorado. 11 a.m. kickoff. God's time on FS1 in Waco. Baylor and number 22 BYU. Baylor currently a 3.5 point favorite. Total around 45.5, pretty much across the board. Gary, as our guest, sir, you get to go first. What would you like here?
It's so I've gone back and forth on this game so many times. I'm going to go with BYU plus 3.5. I think that the loss to Colorado is more deflating, more of a letdown spot, if you will, as opposed to BYU having a letdown after just destroying Kansas State last week. If you look at the game tape, there wasn't a ton for BYU to be proud of last week. I mean, they finished drives, but they were all like 30 yards apiece, 27, 28, whatever yards. They got a bunch of turnovers. They took advantage of it. They did what they needed to do, but there's still a lot to work on for BYU. My stats model has this BYU minus 7.5. My power rating plus stats model has this BYU minus 2. Just overall power rating, if you include home field advantage, I've got Baylor by 1. I still can't get up to 3.5. So I'll take BYU, knowing full well that the teams that we have seen thus far likely will not show up in Waco, and we'll have to figure out something completely different for the next week.
That feels accurate. All right, BYU plus 3.5. Chase, you're up, sir.
Phillip's listened to me talk about betting for a long time, so I think he knows exactly where I'm going with this one. I agree with everything that Gary said, and I'm on Baylor minus 3.5. I so believe that deflating is the perfect word, Gary. I mean, how do you not walk out of the end of that game last week and just feel like, man, we let one get away. We had a positive thing to build on to launch ourselves into conference play. And instead we're going home looking like the team that everybody thought we were. And I just think that's so deflating. It's the perfect word for it. And yet the ROI on unranked favorites who play against top 25 ranked underdogs is astronomical. It is an automatic bet for me pretty much anytime I see it. It's this trend and FCS favorites against FBS underdogs. Almost every single time, it's an automatic bet for me right out of the gate. This is the Big 12 bet of the week. I love this trend. I love this bet. Even at 3.5, I'm going to buy Baylor.
I can get you a 3, sir. So.
Oh, awesome. Perfect. And I should mention, smaller number, right? It was sub 3 earlier in the week, and the sharp action on Baylor that's playing the exact trend I'm talking about is pushing it 2-3 beyond 3.
Yeah, again, when you bet matters a lot. All right. This is, according to the numbers that we look up, a toss-up. SP Plus literally has this at 0.0. That does not pick a favorite. T-Shoes got Baylor minus 1.5. FEI's got BYU minus 4.5. Beta's got BYU minus 1.22. Parker has BYU minus 11.5, which is by far the biggest outlier. And then, of course, our good friend Kelly Ford has BYU at the 53% chance to win. So it leans BYU based on the numbers. I have used Chase's unranked favorite against ranked dogs policy many times to many benefits to me here on the show and picking non-Big 12 teams. I would love to take the under, but it's just too low. I think it's too close to what the number will likely be in this game, so I don't want to do that. So, look, I hate to just agree with Chase, but look, the rule works. It's unranked favorites against a ranked dog. And this is a game where Dave Aranda really doesn't want to lose after last week, or we might just go ahead and make the move. We might just go ahead and make the move. You think the seat's hot now? Woo! I'll take Baylor -3 as well.
Look at me, the outlier.
That's fine. Hey, congratulations. Let me just tell you two things on this show. Congratulations on your win. When it's 1 versus 2, it's usually the one that wins. And if we are all in agreement, there is such a thing as the consensus curse here on the 10-12 podcast, where if we're all in agreement, we're all wrong.
Hey, you've seen the Bet US show. We did the exact same thing. We all feel great about it. Parker and I have agreed on, I think, 2 picks already this year. And so last week we agreed on James Madison. So we hit that one. But aside from that, the other 2 that we did, complete wrongs. I'm just abominations. So we know when we both like something, we're talking about a little more beforehand now, where it's like, yeah, maybe we don't need to make that pick.
You have it this week. I'll take something else. Yeah, absolutely.
Jewelry isn't a gift you give just once. It's a way to remind your loved one of a beautiful moment every time they see it. Blue Nile can help you find the gift that says how you feel and says it beautifully, with expert guidance and a wide assortment of jewelry of the highest quality at the best price. Go to BlueNile.com and experience the convenience of shopping Blue Nile, the original online jeweler since 1999. That's BlueNile.com to find the perfect jewelry gift for any occasion. BlueNile.com.
Okay, we are heading to Manhattan, Kansas for our second game here. Also at 11 a.m. kickoff. This one on ESPN. Ranked on ranked matchup. Number 23, Kansas State, coming off that loss to BYU. Hosting Oklahoma State, coming off their also embarrassing loss to Utah at home. No Provo to blame for that one. It's an interesting situation for both teams. Loser of this game after week 5, I think they're eliminated for the Big 12 title game race. Like, they're done. It would take some insanity, which, don't get me wrong, the Big 12 is insane, but I feel like it would take some real wildness for the loser of this game to get back into this race, especially with losses to Kansas State. Especially if it's Oklahoma with losses to Kansas State and Utah, they would be in a horrible spot. And look, BYU, again, right now, still undefeated. So neither of these teams in a good spot if they lose. So this is a big one for both programs if they want to be in Arlington in December. As of now, Kansas State, I've got 5s, 4.5s, a couple different options depending upon which way you want to go. Total is about 55. There's a few other options around 55 as well. Chase, you are up first, sir. What would you like?
I'm going to play a total here. I think a little bit like the Kansas-West Virginia game last week. If you want to handicap a side in this game, you kind of have to decide how you feel about the rebound of both teams coming off of disappointing performances. And as a West Virginia guy, I had a pretty firm idea of what I thought I was going to get from West Virginia last week. And so I was a little bit more comfortable betting into a side of that game. Like I think I ended up playing the total for the podcast, but I did end up with a little bit on West Virginia in real life. Here, I'm way more interested in a side because I don't think I have a feel for which side is going to emerge from the wreckage of last week looking good. So I'm looking at the under here. When you look at the series total, I talked last week about how disappointing Kansas State's defense often is when it plays on the road. At home, it can be pretty good. In the series specifically against Oklahoma State, you're looking at 5 of the last 6 meetings that have gone under the posted total. Those meetings have spawned about an average of 45 points of offense per game. Here with a 55.5 currently in my shop at BetMGM. That is well north of that series number. I do think especially Kansas State's offense maybe trends a little hotter than usual relative to the series history, but I still think there's a lot of room there with a 55.5. So I'll take the under.
All right, under 55.5 is yours. Look, it's just 2 teams you typically want to bet on. Not this week. Oklahoma State is now negative in yards per play margin. This team looks like last year's team, right? In the way that last year's team got down in games a lot and would mount big comebacks. And they've done it this year. They did it against Arkansas. They tried to do it against Utah, but it came too late. And so they couldn't do it. Couldn't come all the way back. Meanwhile, Kansas State's coming home off just their second non-COVID loss of 20 points or more of the Chris Kleiman era. Chris Kleiman's Kansas State Wildcats don't get blown out often. Again, outside of the COVID year, it's happened twice where they've lost by 20 or more points. They've got a couple double-digit losses, 10 points here, 13 points there, but not like last week. They're coming home, bruised egos. As you mentioned, Chase, their defense plays a lot better at home. It's a defense that is 27th nationally in EPA per rush against a team that can't run the ball, cannot run the ball. And it's not Ollie Gordon's fault. We talked about this before. We'll talk about it again. Ollie is averaging 0.6 yards before contact. The offensive line is not doing its job at all. It's not Ollie's fault. And so it's all on Alan Bowman. If you get great Alan Bowman, like you did against Tulsa, or the second half against Arkansas, awesome. If you get Alan Bowman like you did the first half against Arkansas, or until the last two drives against Utah, no. The last few times these teams have played in Manhattan, and Kansas State's won, it's been by a lot. It hasn't been close. I don't think this one's close. I don't understand why all these different metrics have this game close. SP Plus is Kansas State minus 2.7. TSU is OSU minus 1.5. FEI is Kansas State minus 4.4. Parker's got K-State minus 0.12. Cali Ford's got Kansas State with a 54% chance to win. The outlier is Beta Rank with Kansas State minus 12.78. I actually like Beta Rank's pick here because I don't understand why this line is so close. I don't understand why it hasn't moved that much. I get what Kansas State looked like last week. They were in Provo. They are home. Have you watched Oklahoma State's offense this year? Mike Gundy has complained about his fishing buddy offensive coordinator, Casey Dunn, 3 times so far this year. That is not a good sign that Mike Gundy is complaining about play calling. Give me Kansas State. Give me the Wildcats. I get a 4.5. Perfect. That's fine. I would take it by a touchdown. Wildcats roll. Gary?
So my stats model has Oklahoma State by 0.5 point. Power rating, I've got Oklahoma State power rated number 23. I've got Kansas State number 27. Like sometimes my model does not make sense. Now, part of this is based on like plays per game, which Oklahoma State is number 34 in offensive plays or offensive snaps per game. Kansas State is number 102. Obviously, Kansas State likes to play a little bit slower. I think pace probably has to do with it. When I look at what each team is good at, Kansas State, great at running the ball. They're number 12 in PPA per rush. Oklahoma State, number 74 in PPA allowed per rush. Number 46 in rushing explosiveness for Kansas State. Number 110 for Oklahoma State's defense. On the other side, like you said, Oklahoma State can't run the ball, so they haven't been running the ball. They've only run it on 38.46% of their snaps thus far this season. And I don't think they're really going to try and run a lot here. Oklahoma State is number 26 in PPA per pass. That's predicted points added per pass. And the Kansas State defense is number 109. And Kansas State's line, I don't believe, is going to be able to get pressure on Alan Bowman. They're number 58 in havoc created. Oklahoma State number 30 in havoc allowed. It's going to be whether or not the Kansas State secondary can hold up. But I'm with you. Numbers be damned. I feel really good about Kansas State coming back home and getting the ship righted at home. Like you said, the last 2 times, it has not been close in Manhattan. When you look at the series history, over the past 6 games between these two, the home team has covered every time. So I'm going to roll with that. I know that this thing keeps coming down. It opened at 5.5. I think it went up to 6 for a bit. Now it's down to 4.5 at some spots. I feel good about Kansas State. I would go against that movement, and I'm going to roll with you. I'm going to take Kansas State minus the 5. I think we got right 4.5.
We got 4.5.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Kansas State minus 4.5. That's how I feel about this one.
Courtesy of Chase and BetMGM. We got a 4.5. So
there you go.
Thanks, Chase. Really appreciate that, man. That's really helpful.
Personally welcome.
I appreciate you doing that for us. You're a swell guy.
My pleasure.
Yeah. You just like, hey, we're gonna do this pod tonight. If you could bump that number this way, that'd be awesome. Okay. Next on the list No, no, that's right. We're good. All right. At 2:30 on ESPN Plus, the Kansas Jayhawks hosting, I'm using air quotes because podcasting is a visual medium, hosting TCU, not at home, in Arrowhead in Kansas City, because they haven't been able to play an actual home game this season because they're renovating the stadium. This is definitely a game between two teams who need some things to go their way. Need a little bit of a turnaround, a little bit of a bounce back as well. At the moment, Kansas, 2.5 point favorite, depending upon where you shop. Total, 59. Similar thing, shop around. I'm up first. So here's what I say. TCU and Kansas are two teams who have yet to cover the spread this season. They are both 0-8 on the year. Someone's going to get their first cover of 2024 this weekend. Ha-ha! Somebody has, I assume, or we actually end in a tie for the first time in like 50 years, and it doesn't matter. I mentioned this is an Arrowhead. It's in Arrowhead. It's not in Lawrence. So it's hard to apply home field advantage, home field benefit to this. And I do have to ask the question with some of the way this Kansas team has been playing is how much has not playing at home affected them so far? They haven't played a true home game. They've played in a soccer stadium in Kansas City, and now they're going to play in a giant football stadium in Kansas City. And look, the Big 12 teams have talked about traveling. TCU fans have been like, we're going to travel to this game, except now they're 2-2 and coming off a really, really, really bad rivalry loss. Are they excited about this game? Are they all going to travel up to Kansas City because they're pumped to go watch their Horned Frogs in Arrowhead? Or are they all kind of like, just kind of wait till they get back home and we'll go watch them then? I'm curious what the entire venue is going to look like. What are the fan bases going to do here? It doesn't feel like it's going to have a great vibe. Maybe I'm wrong. TCU fans, when they're ready to, they will travel in hordes. I just don't know here. I don't know. Look, most of the numbers favor Kansas. SP Plus has Kansas minus 2.4. TCU has us at 0.0. Our second 0.0 of the week. Third one of the season. This is really weird to me. FEI's got Kansas by less than a point. Beta's got Kansas by 4. Parker's got TCU by 2.25. And Kelly Ford's got Kansas by 60% chance to win. I don't know how to trust Kansas. I don't trust TCU. But I don't know how to trust Kansas. Now, I've watched more Kansas, and maybe that's the problem, is that my eyes are biasing me against Kansas because I've watched enough Kansas football at this point to just be like, I don't trust Jalen Daniels. I don't trust Jeff Grimes. I don't know why he keeps getting OC jobs now because BYU's looking better without him, and Baylor's looking incrementally better without him, and Kansas is looking worse with him. Look, guys keep getting jobs. I don't understand how this industry works. It's good to be friends, likable, whatever, I don't understand. I don't want to take Kansas. Like, that's the thing is I don't want to take Kansas. I don't particularly trust TCU either, but I don't want to take Kansas. I don't. So I'm not gonna. I'm gonna take the best one I can get, which is MGM's got TCU plus 2.5. Man, you know what? I say all that.
Big night for my 401k on this podcast. Getting a lot of publicity.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm changing my pick before I make it. Give me the over 58.5 in this one.
Okay.
I'm taking the total because TCU feels like the right side. Every projection has this by more than the total. I know Kansas' offense hasn't been incredible. TCU can put up points. TCU's defense can allow points. Maybe they'll make Kansas' offense look better. We shall see. Maybe Jalen Daniels throws a couple of pick sixes to help me out here. I'm going to take the over. Why? Because I don't like any options here, so any option is a good option. Gary?
My projected total on this is 55.89. It opened at 60.5. It's down to 58.5 right now. So you're going to go against the movement. And I can understand why you would do that. I am going to go TCU on this because I bet Kansas last week thinking that, hey, turnovers are not predictive. but I think maybe Kansas's are. I think that what Kansas is doing, Jalen Daniels cannot read a defense. And when he doesn't have Kotelnicki scheming guys open, he doesn't know what to do with the football. And, I mean, you saw it a couple of times last week. Honestly, they are number 132 in the country in interceptions thrown per pass. That is terrible. Now, TCU is only number 90 in interceptions gained per pass that they've defended. So, you know, it's not like they're world beaters at getting takeaways. But, you know, you're looking at the number 108 and number 127 turnover margin teams in the country. Neither team is great at this. But this is a formal protest. I am protesting Kansas, so I'm going to take TCU here.
I like it. Chase.
I'm with Gary. I think Kansas has a little stink to it right now. And we were talking about Baylor being demoralized after last week. I don't know how you do this 2 or 3 weeks in a row. And you know that the season is inching closer to being lost. You don't have home games. It's not a great vibe right now in Lawrence. They're going to get one of these games eventually. Like they have too much potential offensive explosiveness. One of these random Big 12 games, they're going to win by 55. But I think TCU is probably the better team right now. So I will take the 2.5 with TCU as well. And for what it's worth, just like reading the opening line, looking at a Kansas -1 as a home favorite, as a nominal quote unquote home favorite, I think that TCU +1 opener kind of tells you what side the sportsbook likes as well. Kind of baiting the hook with really short action on Kansas as a home conference favorite. So for multiple reasons, I think TCU is the right side here.
Now, see, if I had taken TCU +2.5, we would have had a consensus and Kansas would have won this. So, Andy, I'm really sorry, bud, that I didn't take it for your Kansas team. Andy, of course, host of the Rock Chalk Podcast, Kansas show here in the 10-12 network. So, you're welcome, guys. No consensus curse this week. It's good. One thing that will always break a curse for you is a fantastic shirt from Charlie Hustle, sponsors here on the 10-12 podcast and of the entire 10-12 network. Charlie Hustle makes incredible, vintage, inspired, collegiate apparel. They are based out of Kansas City. They love the Big 12. They love being at a Big 12 event. They love making Big 12 gear. They've got stuff for all 16 teams in the conference, and it is fantastic stuff. There's some great stuff on sale that they just want to get rid of. Go check it out because they've got to make room for new things. If it's on sale, put it in your cart, and you're good. If you've got something that's not on sale, then you use our promo code 101215. TEN1215 gets you 15% off all non-sale items. Notice I didn't say your first purchase. I just said 101215, 15% off all non-sale items. They've got great stuff for TCU, for Kansas, for Kansas State, Oklahoma State. If you're sad about your season, you're already looking ahead to basketball season, Houston, Kansas, and you need to try and put a smile on your face. You want to walk into the bar with your friends and they be like, "Oh, your shirt is awesome." Like, yes, this is going to be the highlight of the day is this shirt. Then go to charliehustle.com, do some shopping, use the promo code Charlie Hustle, vintage made fresh.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
All right. Next game on the slate. Big noon Saturday. Gonna head down to Orlando for a hurricane. UCF, and I don't just mean the game, I also mean the actual weather phenomena. UCF hosting Colorado on Fox at 2:30. Dion effect. UCF, Bounce House going to be hopping. They've been ready for this one. There's a company that's selling buttons, and there's some very, very clever buttons that they've been putting out ahead of this game. They've had this one circled. They're excited about this one. this, and of course the space game against Arizona. I'll say this now. I'm really sorry, Arizona. You'll learn about space game later in the season. So big game, 2:30 on Fox. As I mentioned, very excited for this one. UCF this is down to 14. This one had spiked up last night. Chase and I were texting. This had gotten all the way up to like 15. It was pushing towards 16. I've got it at 14 now. UCF is a favorite. Total at 64.5, 65, depending upon your particular flavor. Gary, you are up first, sir. What would you like in this game?
Yeah, there's a couple of services that are going back and forth on these, which is kind of interesting. When we talked about this show on Tuesday on the BetUS College Football Show, it had bounced from 14 to 16 in the 30 minutes prior to us going live on the show, so that was definitely interesting. Now it's all the way back down to 14 again. This is like the chirp off championship, right? Between UCF fans and the Dion followers, right? I mean, they are all ridiculous online. They just attack everybody that has anything negative to say about either team. When my model pulls up these two teams, I've got UCF minus 21 as far as the stats model is concerned. My power rating plus stats has got UCF by 15. I think it's going to be somewhere around that 14 mark. UCF should be able to just run over these guys, right? Number 14 PPA per rush. UCF is running the ball 73.91% of the time. That is bully ball. And we know that Colorado can't hang with that. They're not terrible. They're number 47 in PPA allowed per rush, but their stuff rate's only number 83. UCF's stuff rate allowed is number 4 in the country. The question is going to be on the other side and whether or not anybody can get any kind of stops here, because Colorado throws the ball 66.67% of the time, and UCF's defense is number 126 in PPA allowed per pass, number 125 in passing success rate allowed, and number 125 in passing explosiveness allowed. You let those guys get behind your defense enough, and Travis Hunter and Horn Jr. and Will Shepard, who dropped a touchdown pass towards the end last week, that the Lester kid from FAU that transferred in, like, they got weapons galore. It's really whether or not they're going to be able to defend the quarterback, protect Shedeur Sanders. So I think you're going to see a ton of points here. I'm going to go with UCF because I think that they will try and grind it out. And if you can get Colorado to make one mistake, then you're all right. I think pace of play could play into a total here. My projected total is only 55 on this, even though it would have opened at 63.5. I'm going to go UCF because I think they're just going to be super, super excited about. I mean, the bounce house is just going to be ridiculous for this spot. That Hurricane should be long gone by then. I feel good about the Knights.
All right. UCF minus 14. Chase?
I kind of wish there was a three-way market for this game where you could bet UCF money line, Colorado money line, Hurricane money line. Just like if the game gets wrecked, Hurricane money line pays out. Look, I have been, as regular listeners know, pretty critical of the Colorado odds market so far this season. I don't think I've bet Colorado one side yet this season. This is the spot you're waiting for, right? If you're a Colorado critic, not because they have some great matchup with UCF or anything, but because to this point, they've really been either a favorite or kind of a short dog in a bad spot. And I never wanted to get involved with them. This is finally a time where Colorado is at least theoretically an appealing side, right? So if you're a guy like Gary or Parker and you make your own numbers, then you might still see a mathematical edge opposite of Colorado. But for a marketplace bettor like me, when you see something like Colorado plus 14.5, and for a lot of the first month of the season, they're, laying somewhere between 6 and 13 points. Like, this is now a very different situation where you get to get Colorado. 14.5 right now is the number at FanDuel and I believe ESPN. So if you could get 2 full touchdowns plus the hook, that's a nice number to attack. Remember, that is up from where this opened at the beginning of the week, which was 11. So you've got 3.5 additional points of value on the Colorado side of this, when Phillip and I were talking last night, as he referenced, this was around 15.5 or 16, which was even juicier. But there's not a ton of, actual value when you're looking at 14.5 versus a 15.5 or a 16. So really what you want is to be on the north side of the 14, which is where I can still get it right now. I like the Colorado side here. I like the idea that they could be down 31 and backdoor this thing in the fourth quarter because of the way they're going to be able to go at UCF's passing defense with Shedeur in that wide receiver room. So this is my first spot where I want to be a little bit evangelical about the power of the Colorado plus the point spot. So Colorado plus 14.5 for me, please.
You got it, sir. Only one of the metrics we look at has UCF by 14. That's FEI. Everyone else projects UCF by less. SP Plus, Tishu, Beta, Parker. Of course, Kelly Ford has UCF with an 83% chance to win. So, to the points you guys have made, it's an interesting matchup here because you get UCF defense. Their weakness is against the pass, which is what Colorado basically only does. They don't run the ball. They can't and they don't. And Colorado's defense is really bad against the run. Now, this might shock you, and I just have to say this because I saw it and just went, oh, okay, well, the Colorado fans are going to try and point this out. Shout out to Max Olson, who always puts out his stop rate, which is a fun little stat to do. Colorado is number 22 in the country at 75% in stop rate, which is a little weird. Probably because Nebraska didn't score for the second half, and they played Colorado State, who's not very good. And so, we'll see. This is I think UCF is the best team they have faced so far this season. I think this is the biggest test they've faced. But with that whole bad at the run in mind and understanding that UCF runs the ball, they run the ball, they run the ball, they run the ball, they run. Oh, there's a pass. Then they run. If you're Colorado, you should be stacking the box. Force UCF, KJ Jefferson, and his one target in Kobe Hudson to beat you. Yes, UCF fans, I'm aware of tight end Randy Pittman. Yeah, cool, great, awesome. One guy has triple-digit yards. One. It's Kobe Hudson. That's it. That's the guy. And then you have a periphery of other players who will have a game here or there, maybe, but thus far, no. Oh, by the way, UCF has 1 sack on the year, so they're really going to be able to exploit Colorado's offensive line issues, which I'm going to say this. That offensive line has gotten better as the season has gone on. Mind you, better from awful is not necessarily good. It's just less stinky. UCF might run all over it. They might just run all over them. They might set the new record for rushing yards. Samaje Perine owns the single game rushing record with 427 yards against Kansas in 2014. RJ Harvey is good enough to top that in this game. He might just do so. Okay? But I like Chase's side here. I do. I think with the hook, I have to take Colorado. I picked them last week to win, and they did it. Baylor screwed up. UCF has avoided screwing up. In fact, UCF came back on TCU. That's a game last year they would have lost. And remember, last year, I accidentally said Baylor in a tweet, and I got UCF fans all like, thanks for pointing out we won, but also bringing up one of the worst memories we've got in the past decade. I'm not saying UCF's going to choke here, but more than 2 touchdowns, I think Colorado might backdoor this. That is what Chase's point there is accurate. So, Chase, I'm coming with you, man. I'm sorry now, but I'm also taking Colorado plus 14.5.
And to your point, if you're looking at the UCF side of this, maybe you get the Sam Houston game again. And if so, cool. The Colorado ticket's dead right out of the gate because UCF murders them. That Sam Houston game, they played lights out. They were awesome. But, more often than not, you don't completely obliterate a team. And I think that's the value of a side where you're getting 2 touchdowns on the hook.
Yeah, I would love to say that there's a look-ahead spot with them going to Florida next week. But like I said, you've got companies who've been making buttons for this game. And started promoting them 2 weeks before this game was being played. They had this game circled. Like they
Yeah,
have the Florida game circled. They've had this.
You
game
ain't
circled.
looking ahead. You ain't looking ahead over Coach Prime.
Yeah.
This is everybody.
That's
at
exactly
home.
what I was going to say. There's been too much Dion noise the last 2 years for Colorado to ever be a look ahead spot.
Yes.
And they got big noon kickoff this time, and it's the first time that it's going to be on campus for them. So yeah, it's a huge deal.
Yeah. This is not no. 2 weeks from now is the what we call the letdown spot. But we'll talk about that when we get to it. Okay, moving on down the list. 6 p.m. Our first night game of the slate on FS1. Houston. Oh, poor Houston. Oh, poor Houston. Look, rebuilds take time, and that's what this is. It's a rebuild. That's okay. I trust Willie Fritz to handle a rebuild well. But they're hosting Iowa State. Number 18 Iowa State in Houston, 6 p.m. FS1. At the moment, Iowa State is a 14 to 14.5 point favorite, depending upon which number helps you more. Total is at 43 and a half. Chase, I believe you are first, sir. What would you like here?
Amusingly, this is the pretty much exact same game profile in terms of the odds and the line movement as the Colorado UCF game, because Iowa State opens as an 11-point favorite and it gets bet out to 14 and a half, which is where it's at right now as we're recording this on Wednesday evening. I think, Phillip, you said it about Houston. Look, it's rough. It's a rebuild. It's going to be ugly sometimes. And last week at Cincinnati, it was ugly. This is a miserable handicap. I definitely have no real exposure here in real life. But this is kind of 101 in terms of our podcast setup when we're betting every game. Very basic. Iowa State wins by 1,000,000 points last week. Houston gets killed by Cincinnati. It was 34-0, and it wasn't that close. So this number, after it gets popped out, you're talking about a potential sell high spot on Iowa State after they drop 50-some points or whatever in a non-conference game. You're talking about a buy low spot on Houston. And you're talking about getting 3+ points of extra value and a good number at 14.5. It's gross. It sucks. I don't want to do it, but give me Houston plus the points. And I hope that the outcome I get here is a lot like the week 1, week 2 Houston split, where they get demolished by UNLV week 1. It's embarrassing. And then they come back the next week and they play with a lot of heart at Oklahoma.
I listened to some national podcasts last week, and they were like, Houston looks like they're figuring some things out here. It looks like it's starting to turn the wheels. And I was just like, you guys box score hopping? Or have you actually watched Houston and understand that this is a rebuild? Okay. And then they went out and just got smashed on the road at Cincinnati. And back home, right? That might help. I do think Houston's defense isn't terrible. I think it is hurt by the fact that the offense is awful, and Donovan Smith is nothing if not inconsistent. So had a great game against Rice and followed it up with exactly what I knew he would follow it up with against Cincinnati, which was a god-awful game. Because if he's going to have it, you got to pick your spots for the good games and immediately bet against Donovan Smith after he'd had a really good game. Don't fall for that trap. Here, against Iowa State, I get it, Chase. I do. I hate numbers this big. You know this. I don't. Big numbers, I just don't. No. And that total is low. Most projections have the total higher than that. So I'm very tempted to take the over because I got some 43s out there still. SP's got 49. T-Shoe's the only one below it at 32. FEI's got 47. Beta's got 49. Parker's got 45. So every projection points to the over here. My concern is I think I like the over. But the concern I want to say is I'm afraid Houston won't score any points again because Iowa State's defense is so good, and it is really good. But you are back home after a blowout loss where you got shut out. I would expect the offense to put up more points against Iowa State at home than it did on the road at Cincinnati last week. And I have no reason to believe that Iowa State, and it's very good. It's good offensive line. Abu Sama finally gets loose. I think Iowa State's the right side here. But kind of like last week, I thought Iowa State was the right side. I don't like taking teams when the number's that big. I don't want to take Houston. That's gross. At 43, I'm going to take the over. This may end up being like the OU game where everyone's just like, how did Houston put up 12 points and hold OU to like nothing? To like 16. Was it something like 17 or something? I'm going to take the over 43. I think that's the right side. Iowa State's going to have to do most of the work for that to hit, but I'm okay with that. I think Houston will do just enough to get us over the hump, like 35-10, that kind of game. So I'll take the over. Gary?
I'm gonna roll Houston plus the 14.5. Short total, like you talked about, big spread, and it's not a huge spread, but still more than 2 touchdowns. Pace of play on this, I mean, you're talking about the number 112 and number 105 offensive plays per game teams in the country, and I do kind of believe in this Houston defense. Willie Fritz, like you said, it is a rebuild. They're coming back home. They just got embarrassed. You got to show a little bit of pride here. That Iowa State defense is legit, number 8 in PPA per pass, number 41 PPA per rush, and that Houston offense has shown nothing at all in this spot. But you gotta believe in something. I'm going to believe in Willie Fritz to be able to find a way to score some points. I think we might see Chris at quarterback a little bit. We might see some different formations, things that Iowa State has not seen yet. And in Houston, again, at home, Iowa State's got to go on the road here. My projected total on this, by the way, 43.27. So right there on that number. I will take Houston to cover, even though my stat spread has Iowa State by 22, and my power rating plus stats has Iowa State by 13.3 on this. So yeah, I'm going to take Houston to keep it within 2 touchdowns and a hook.
Very nice. All right. Moving on down our list. At 7 p.m. on ESPN2 in wild, everything is West Texas, Lubbock, Texas Tech hosting Cincinnati. This is 2 1-0 teams in the Big 12. This is 2 teams who, yes, they have lost, but they're undefeated in conference play so far. Someone's moving to 2-0 and feeling real good about themselves. It's a sneaky, interesting game I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to. Texas Tech right now a 2.5-point favorite over the Bearcats. Total at 58.5, pretty much across the board. I'm up first. Let me just say this. I don't have any notes on this game. I didn't do any digging into research. I've got my numbers. Everyone favors Texas Tech from as low as 0.7 SP plus and as high as 12.78 with beta rank. Kelly Ford gives Texas Tech a 58% chance to win. Texas Tech is figuring some things out. They really do look like they're figuring things out. The injuries were an issue early in the season for them. The injuries, specifically on defense. They've had a lot of young kids out there playing. A lot. But those young guys are getting acclimated. They're figuring this out. They have shown progress each week. Ever since week 1 where they struggled against an FCS team and week 2 where it was bad against Washington State. They are starting to figure this out. You saw a North Texas game. They just blew North Texas completely out of the water. Get the win last week. I think Texas Tech is moving in the right direction. Cincinnati, you can say something similar to. Again, Brennan Sorsby still hasn't thrown an interception on the season. It's very impressive. But I don't trust Cincinnati on the road here. Do we get to call this the Tommy Tuberville Bowl? Because, he left Texas Tech, left a meeting with a recruit to take the Cincinnati job. And I think Texas Tech was the winner in that trade. So loser has to hire Tommy Tuberville back on staff, at least in an advisory role. Yeah. Yeah. He'll be an offensive advisor to the coach. I'm taking Texas Tech here. I think straight up, I think they're going to win this. I think they figured a lot of things out. They are home for a night game in Lubbock. I think the fans are going to be rowdy. The tortillas are going to be flying. Give me Texas Tech minus 2.5. Gary?
Oh, man, I kind of like Cincinnati at 3.5, but this thing has moved the opposite direction. Stats model has Cincy by 5. Power rating plus stats has Texas Tech by a quarter of a point. Like, not very much. Baron Moore, I don't know what version of Baron Morton we get from week to week. And I feel pretty good about Swordsby, right? Like, he has really shown good things. Scott Satterfield used to be a good coach. Like, I know he was. And things just went sideways at Louisville. Last year, he's trying to get everything kind of rebuilt, that foundation rebuilt at Cincy. And it kind of feels like he's got the ball rolling here. Number 17 offensive PPA per drive right now, only number 65 on defense. But it's kind of the same thing with Texas Tech. Number 35 PPA per drive on offense, number 86 on defense. But Texas Tech is getting healthy. This is kind of a pace battle as well. Cincy number 70 in offensive plays per game. Texas Tech is number 1, running 78.75 plays per game on offense. Yeah, it's Lubbock at night. Give me Texas Tech. I'll side with you.
Oh, Lubbock at night. Oh, Chase.
I don't know how y'all do this conference every week. Every single one of these games is just back and forth. Like it, you would feel good taking either side. Like you could really talk yourself into any of these teams.
Gary, can I tell you the secret to betting this conference every week?
Tell me.
Don't.
You really have to hate yourself. It's you have to be so comfortable with being wrong all the damn time.
Oh,
it's a weekly humility check is what it is. I'm gonna do everybody's favorite thing. I'm gonna jump on Texas Tech with you guys. Let's make it a clean sweep. And let's all be wrong.
Curse.
Go ahead and put the red X on it.
I have talked at length in previous episodes about the Joey McGuire home road splits at Texas Tech. Generally speaking, they win in Lubbock, they lose most other places, right? It's just kind of how Texas Tech plays. Getting here, a Texas Tech team that's opened at 5, but is now down under 3. It's kind of hard to argue with that, especially given that Cincinnati, like their market exposure is so much higher now coming off this big blowout win over Houston. But I mean, when you're dealing with Houston, probably the worst and least talented team in the conference that we know is really up and down, is it really anything to get them on a down bad week where you beat them 34-0? Like, I don't know that you need some big adjustment there. So as big as a Sorsby guy as I have been at times this season, I just think this is a little too much pub for Cincinnati on this line movement. And to be able to get Texas Tech at 2.5 instead of 3, I think is really valuable. And you kind of a split market right now, looking at where all the numbers are Wednesday evening, because you have some 3s on the board, you have some really juicy 2.5s, and then I see my shop has a clean 2.5 at -110, as does it looks like Caesars. But everywhere else is kind of trending back closer to that 3 number with finally some midweek buyback on Texas Tech. So I know we're joking about the whole curse nature of this, but I really do feel like the fundamentals and the most recent market action is going to push this back toward 3. And my guess is that it's going to stay in that 3 zone for most of the rest of the week until kickoff.
Action Network, by the way, has 67% of the bets at Action Network are on Texas Tech. And this thing opened, the initial line that came out over the summer on this game was Texas Tech 7.5. So the fact that it's 67% of the bets and it's down to 2.5, very, very interesting on that one. Now, granted, it doesn't mean anything, but it is interesting.
Yeah, it's a good reference point, and I think it speaks to the fact that Cincinnati has had a better last couple weeks. I mean, blowing that Pitt game aside, like they've looked pretty good the last 2 or 3 weeks, and Texas Tech has been a little uneven. But as Phillip has pointed out in multiple previous betting episodes, like they just haven't been healthy. I mean, they're playing with scraps out there at parts of their defense. So, I don't care that we're all on Texas Tech. I really like the Texas Tech side.
I think 2 weeks ago they had an actual cactus playing defensive back. Like they just had a cactus out there. They just stuck it in the field, and that's what they had to do at DB.
He was carrying around a tortilla, right?
Yeah. No, Tortilla was playing linebacker. It was actually a rolled tortilla, warmed up with butter. Okay. Last Big 12 game on the list.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the Vehicle Owner's Manual for important feature limitations and information.
It is a Big 12 game. It's not a Pac-12 game. I know it's weird to say that, but it is. 9:15 kickoff, ESPN, that is 9:15 God's time, in Salt Lake City, Utah. 4-0, number 10 in the country, welcoming Arizona. A classic vintage Big 12 battle between Utah and Arizona out in Salt Lake City. That's just weird as all get out. At the moment, Utah is an 11-point favorite. There's some 11.5s as well. Total is 47.5, pretty much across the board. Gary, you are up first, sir. What would you like here?
I like Utah. So the reason I like Utah is defense. I am not buying into Noah Fafita and T-Mac. Yeah, they're number 42 PPA per pass, but this Utah defense, number 26 in PPA allowed per pass, number 10 in passing success rate allowed. They are number 10 in defending explosive passes, right? That's what Arizona has on offense. They're number 5 in passing explosiveness. But I think that Utah is going to be able to live in that backfield. They're number 30 in havoc rate created, and Arizona is number 92 in havoc allowed. You start looking at offensive line yards, stuff rate, etc. As far as Arizona trying to run the ball, Arizona number 100 in offensive line yards. Utah is number 47 in defensive line yards. Stuff rate, Utah number 24, and Arizona is number 125 on offense. So you move over to the other side of the ball. Who knows about Cam Rising? My guess is it's going to be the Wilson kid again. But I think that they can do just enough on offense to be able to cover this number. And we've got an 11 out there. Yeah, I'll take Utah minus the 11. I mean, Salt Lake at night is just vicious, and Arizona handled Utah last year. I think this is a bit of a revenge spot. I'll take Whittingham at home.
Chase?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm lockstep with Gary again. I'm not afraid to lay 11 points here with Utah. I think it's probably on the square side in terms of picks, but I just haven't seen a lot from Arizona thus far that says the post-Fish Wildcats team is going to compete with the top of the Big 12. And that Kansas State game was pretty brutal. And I'm prepared to say that Utah is better than Kansas State at this point. So I'm not afraid to lay a big number. I think the defense is going to completely wreck what Arizona wants to do on offense. Again, I mean, we know how talented Fafita and some of the players on this team are. Fafita to McMillan should be awesome. But I mean, everything else in orbit is not really working. And that is where I think I'm going to plant my flag is just lay the big number, regardless of, I mean, I'm going in blind on the Cam Rising stuff, but like, I don't really think it matters. I think Utah's defense controlling this game and limiting what Arizona can do is what's going to define this game. So yeah, I'll lay the points big. I don't mind.
I don't want a consensus curse. 2 games in a row. I will point out, Arizona has had 2 weeks to prepare for this game, while Utah had prepared to go to Stillwater last weekend. Big game. Now they're back home. It is a night game. Everyone has told me Utah is one of the toughest places to play. Arizona's been there before, but Utah's familiar with Arizona. But Arizona has had 2 weeks to get ready for this game. 2 weeks to lick their wounds after the absolute butt kicking in Manhattan by Kansas State. Maybe that won't matter. Maybe it won't. Maybe they're just gonna, they're like, nah, we're just gonna go out and do the same thing. We don't fix, what's broken. I have a feeling Arizona will look better against Utah than they did against Kansas State. And that's not a matter of comparing Kansas State to Utah. That's, you had 2 weeks to figure some things out. Make notes after getting absolutely blasted in Manhattan. and then going on the road to Utah, a place that you have played before. This isn't new for you. If this number were bigger, I would take the Arizona side. Utah's winning this, and they might win by 2 touchdowns. They might win by 10. I don't think Cam Rising will play again this season. But who knows? Because Kyle Whittingham is one of the worst people to trust when it comes to injury news. It might be Isaac Wilson. He's been meh. I wonder if he'll be better this weekend, coming back home. Night game against the defense. Arizona's defense is worse than Oklahoma State's. I'm taking the over. I know that's not a good side to take with Utah with the way their defense plays, but I think Arizona will have enough in the tank after 2 weeks of prep to put up some points. I have been hesitant on Utah about what to pick with them. I've run with totals more often. I know it's weird to take an over in a Utah game, and this is probably a bad decision. It's probably going to come back and bite me. But I'm going to take the over here because I do think Arizona will be prepared enough to put up some points on offense, at least more than they did against Kansas State against Utah. And at 47.5, I can absolutely see a 28-21, 31-21 kind of game where maybe Arizona makes it look closer in the end, kind of like OSU did against Utah last week. We shall see. I'll take over 47.5.
Yeah, that number came down quite a bit. It was 50.5, and now it's down to 47.5. It's quite the line movement.
It's that performance against OSU. They've been hitting unders. The defense looks fantastic, right? So, I mean, it makes Arizona, last time we saw them, they put up 7 points against Kansas State. I think you get 2 weeks to prepare. If you come out and look the same against Utah as you did against Kansas State, just shut the season down because it ain't going to get any better. All right. That wraps up our Big 12 games. So we each now get to pick one non-Big 12 game, any game of your choosing. Based off our order here, Chase, you are up first, sir. What would you like?
The non-Big 12 picks have just been absolute fire so far. Haven't lost the non-Big 12 yet. We're trying to get to October unblemished. This week, actually going to play a little weeknight spot here, Friday night. When you think of Big Ten football, you think of Rutgers, Washington. I think we all agree on that. So I'm gonna plant the flag here in Big Ten country in New Jersey. I really like Rutgers here. I've watched Washington. I've watched Rutgers. I know what Rutgers brought back from last year. I know what Washington brought back from last year. There is not a reason. You cannot convince me that this game should be a 2-point spread. Washington on a short week, because they're playing on Friday, is flying cross country on a short week to play a team that is better than it. And they're a 2-point dog. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I think this is absolute brand bias at its worst. Rutgers football, is what it is. It's Rutgers football. It's not sexy. It has been pretty good. I think they were 7-2 at one point last season. So this is a pretty decent Rutgers program moving in the right direction. Washington, on the other hand, played the national championship game last year. So everybody is thinking about that. The record looks pretty good right now. Check back here in 6 or 7 weeks and let's see what the Washington football record is, because they are about to have the exact same total record collapse that Colorado had a year ago, where they were 3-1 and they got to the end of the non-conference or whatever, and then they just get obliterated by a really challenging conference schedule. This is the very beginning of that stretch, and I think if Rutgers and Washington played 6 or 7 weeks from now, you would see this a lot closer to Rutgers -7.
All right, Rutgers -2. I like it. I'm with you on the brand bias thing. I think that's a big, sometimes names on the helmet, that matters. All right. When I start my research each week, I always start with Bill Connelly's SP Plus numbers. Part of that's because they're one of the first ones up, so I just go to put his down. And so for my non-Big 12, what I've started doing this season is I'll look for his 2 or 3 numbers that show the biggest variance from Vegas. And then I go through everyone else throughout the week and I kind of try and match and see if anybody sticks out really well. And there hasn't really been one where it's like, we all agree something's way off here. Until this week. This week I found a good one. A wrong team favorite situation based off of 4 of the 5, actually 5 of the 6 people who I go check each week. And that team that is favored, let's see, when the numbers came out on the weekend, it was like more than a touchdown. Now, I think that's come down since then. Nope, it's still more than a touchdown. That don't make no sense. Now, mind you, this is a sicko special of the week because it's two teams who are combined 1-7 on the season so far. But New Mexico is a 9.5-point favorite. SB Plus has New Mexico State minus 4.3. Tishu has New Mexico State minus 2.5. FEI has New Mexico State minus 1.4. Beta has New Mexico State minus 12.78. Parker has New Mexico minus 1.41. And Kelly Ford gives New Mexico State a 51% chance to win. I've got a team who all my favorite metrics favor, 5 out of 6, favor the dog of 9.5 points. Give me New Mexico State plus 9.5.
Yeah, my number on that is New Mexico State minus 1.33. I think it's wrong. But I don't think New Mexico State's very good.
But I don't think New Mexico is either.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
One's favored by more than a touchdown on the road?
That is pretty wild. Yeah.
I really like New Mexico this year, and I have been betting them often as a dog. But when I saw they were a favorite in this and laying points, I was like, I'm going to have to give up my pet for the week because I don't want to lay points with them. And then I saw the number got blasted from like
6.5, I think was opening. And then
I saw it. It was in the 6 range. It was definitely lower than 7. And to see it blasted almost up to 10, you're like, whoa, that is. I mean, I like New Mexico too, so I know there are some. Because look, nobody with $25 in their DraftKings account is betting this game. Like this is a sharp spot. This is.
I put $2 on New Mexico, just money line. New Mexico State money line.
Going straight to that 401k, right?
Yeah. Like I put I always put like $20 in at the beginning of the year, and just so this felt like a $2 bet. I'm like, everybody's like, yeah, this number's way wrong. I'm like, great, let's go.
It feels like that number's a bit too big. I agree with you. Yeah.
So New Mexico State plus 9.5. Get your sicko games here, folks. All right, Gary, what you got?
I am going to take us over to Boone, North Carolina, and I am going to take Liberty against App State. And what's the number I can get now? Threes are all gone. All right, so we still
there's a 3.
Is there? All right, let's go with
DraftKings has a 3, and if you can bet it, you can get it.
Look at DraftKings go. All right, yeah, give me Liberty minus the 3. Okay, reasonable explanation for this is that App State is number 116 in tackling grade at PFF. South Alabama, and I'm not saying that Liberty is as good as South Alabama because who could possibly be as good as Gio Lopez, but 7.9 yards per carry for South Alabama last week, and it was not on like 10 carries. This was on 41 carries. They ran the ball 41 times, had 322 rushing yards, and App State could not stop it. We saw the same thing against Clemson. You saw East Carolina do some of the same stuff, and if East Carolina had not given them the ball so many times, they probably would have won that ball game. App State has fundamental flaws on defense. They cannot tackle. And Jamie Chadwell knows this App State team. He knows this coaching staff. He understands how they work, what they think. And his offense is nothing but running. They are fantastic at it. They run the ball over 60% of the time, and I think they're going to continue to run the ball all day, all night. Their defense is going to be able to get some stops here. They finally woke up in the second half against East Carolina. They had looked like complete garbage at the beginning of the season, and it's like they flipped a switch and just turned it on. I think they are ready for this game. App State, problems there. Give me Liberty minus the 3.
Looked like garbage at the beginning of the season. How about it looked like garbage at the beginning of the game against East Carolina?
Oh, yeah.
I think they were down 17-0 when I checked in. And then all of a sudden, a couple turnovers later.
Crashed my East Carolina plus 6.5 last week.
Yeah, I was on it too. Yeah.
Mine too. Yay, we all went over. See, consensus curse, even in real betting.
That's the way it goes. But that's the thing. Liberty woke up. They finally woke up. That offense looked like it has. I mean, it looked like it was supposed to. And Quentin Cooley and Caden Salter against this App State defense, yeah, I feel pretty good about that one.
It's time for Jamie Chadwell to get a big boy job. Somebody be smart enough. Come on now. All right.
You got that right.
Gary, man, you were fantastic. I knew you would be. You lived up to the expectations. I appreciate it, man. You do a great job talking betting, covering college football. Where can everybody check out all the work that you do?
And so it's very simple to find me at Gary WCE on all the different socials. I'm most active on X. I feel like everybody in this space is. But the Bet US College Football Show every Tuesday and Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And I do the Winning Cures Everything podcast whenever I can get to it. So that's the simplest way. WinningCuresEverything.com is where you can find that.
Gary, again, appreciate it, man. You've been an absolute pleasure and joy to have on. This will not be your last time unless you're just like, I'm not doing this again.
I appreciate you guys.
Absolutely. Chase, plug the socials and remind everybody where they can find your best bets each week.
At Chase A Kiddy on Twitter, of course, is where the content is. Sometimes there's a deluge of JMU content when you have a 70 burger that gets dropped on the odd ACC team now and again. BetMGM, of course, is where is the day job that pays the bills. So you can find all my good work over there at the BetMGM blog, a lot of which gets linked to on my Twitter or on the BetMGM Twitter. And then Square Bets is the podcast where me and my dumbass friends play Circa Millions every week with their interesting insights into NFL betting from HR specialists and clinical drug trialists and all the other stuff that they do.
What's the record at this point?
Well, we started 4-1 in week 1, and then we were 3-2 in week 2, and then we were 2-3 in week 3. So you can kind of see the direction that it's going in. But honestly, I say that as a joke. 9-6 after 3 weeks for a group of guys that really does not bring a lot of expertise to the table, I still think's pretty good. I think it's not bad. It's not going to win any money in the contest. But like in terms of covering the personal spread on the teams put together, I think we're doing okay.
You guys finish above 500, it's a win.
If we finish anywhere near 500, it's a win. I think. I had to tell you, I don't want to step on the show too much, and I know we're at the end of 90 minutes of recording, and I'm talking about NFL now, but my friend Tyler, who is among the least knowledgeable in the group. Like I asked him what game he liked tonight when we recorded, and he said he likes the Bucks. And I said, what do you like about the Bucks? And he said, well, I saw they were playing at home. I said, perfect. No notes. Great analysis, right? He so far has not missed a pick. And which is exactly what I envisioned when I thought of the show. Just like dumb stuff like that happening all the time. But we have 6 guys, if you haven't listened to the show. So one pick gets thrown out every week. And it's now multiple weeks in a row now where his pick has been thrown out, even though he is absolutely perfect, has been right every single. It's the dumbest, most perfect show in the world. It's so funny.
All right, everybody go check it out. Go check out Square Bets. Check out the Bet US College Football Show. We will be back here at the 10-12 podcast on Monday to recap the weekend that was and look ahead to the week that will be. Y'all enjoy the games this weekend.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.